We'll start with candidate Greg Acciardo. You have 2 minutes to make your opening statement. You can stay seated. It would be good, I think, if you did, and that should be working. And we're trying to record you on this as well, so. Are we hearing? Yeah? Okay.
Thank you. My name is Gregory Acciardo. To give you a little background, I am a lifelong Rhode Island resident. I graduated from South Capital in 1975. I went to URI, lived in Narragansett, graduated in 1979, majored in political science and American history. I then went to law school in Boston, went to school of law, and after completing law school, I was sworn in to the bar in Rhode in 1983. I was elected in 1984 to the Senate, District 28, which was constant. I served the Senate for 8 years representing Johnston. During that time, I served on the Committee on Judiciary, Committee on Health, Education, and Welfare, Committee on Special Legislation, the Governors Commission on the Handicap, the Lottery Commission as Vice Chairman, and on the Narragansett Bay Commission. In that capacity, I was responsible for sponsoring or co-sponsoring numerous pieces of legislation which affect us today. On the Governors Commission on the Handicap, I worked with Dr. Carl in closing that school and developing the group home program. On the Narragansett Bay Commission, when I was a member, we worked to expand the sewer line system in the Johnston, North Province area, developed more efficient wastewater facilities, which resulted in a cleaner bay today. I also, on the time is up, so have to give you the rest when I get my solution later. But we're off to a good start.
Thanks, Greg. Bridget?
Great. Thank you, Chuck. And thank you to Elizabeth McNamara from East Greenwich News and to the East Greenwich Chamber of Commerce for sponsoring tonight's event. It's so great to be here in front of this amazing crowd tonight. I'd also like to thank my husband, Will, who's here tonight. He's been my #1 supporter since I started this campaign. And our 2 boys, Oscar and Elliot, couldn't be with us tonight. They're 3 and 5, so anyone who has small kids know how that might have gone. So I'd like to give a quick shout out to my mom and dad, who live in Narragansett, and they're watching them tonight. And finally, I'd like to thank New England Tech, not just for hosting us here tonight, but for being such an important part of our community and our state. They train so many people right here for the jobs of today and tomorrow, and they'll be such a critical part of growing Rhode Island's economy. So I want to talk a little bit about why I'm running to be your senator. We deserve to be represented by a clear and passionate voice in the General Assembly. And I feel like that's something that we've been missing for a while. I know that I can be an effective representative in the General Assembly with a fresh voice and a fresh perspective. I've been going door to door in our district for the past several months, and I've had hundreds of face-to-face conversations with voters like you about the things that really matter to Rhode Island families. And so I have a pretty good idea of what people want, because I've taken the time to listen. I've heard your concerns and your hopes for our state, and I share so many of them. I've also spent a lot of time up at the State House the last couple of years, rallying and testifying at hearings, and we've made some real progress on things, but a lot of our concerns have gone ignored. It has left a lot of us frustrated with how the system works. It's through those experiences that I've really come to feel a really effective way.
Time is up. All right, thank you, Bridget. And we will now go to several questions for both of you. We'll alternate. So Greg, you started with the opening statement, so Bridget, this will go to you first. And it goes along with what you were saying. What is your top legislative priority for Rhode Island in 2018, 2019? Specifically, what do you really want to accomplish more than anything else by being senator?
Sure. Well, the issue that really got me involved in politics here in Rhode Island has been the fight to protect choice here in Rhode Island. Now, obviously, women's reproductive rights are under attack across the country. And, President Trump is making good on his campaign promise to appoint Supreme Court justices that will overturn Roe v. Wade. And right now in Rhode Island, we do not have in our state law those protections. And so, I've spent a lot of time up at the State House, rallying and testifying to have the Reproductive Health Care Act passed. And, that's a bill that would enshrine in state law the dependence of Roe v. Wade. So that would definitely be one of my top priorities.
Okay, to you, Greg, your top legislative priority for the first year in the Senate?
My top legislative priority is, I lived through the Vietnam War when I was younger, and approximately 60,000 Americans died in that war over the course of 10 years. Today, 80,000 people die every year from the addiction crisis. That has to be addressed. My alma mater, URI, has just started a master's degree program for nurse practitioners to deal with the opiate addiction problem. It's a problem that we have to attack. It's a problem that affects every family, not only in the state, but in this country. There are various things that can be done, but we have to make people more aware before the tragedy hits them themselves. We have to make it more aware. We have to work with URI. We have to set up some type of community outreach programs to attack this crisis. People marched in the streets and protesting the war because of the Americans that are dying. No one's protesting in the streets about the 80,000 people that die every year. And that has to be addressed. And that would be my top priority.
Thanks. Next question, and this will go to Greg. It's going to be tough to keep track of this, isn't it? This goes to Rhode Island's gun laws. We've seen legislation get through the General Assembly addressing gun control. We've seen other legislation stall in committee or not get through. What about your opinion? Do you think Rhode Island's current gun laws are too strict, about right, or not strict enough?
Well, on that issue, when it comes to the ban on assault weapons, I happen to side with Bernie Sanders on that. I believe that the assault weapon ban has to be federal legislation. I will vote for an assault weapon ban, but it's a drop in the bucket unless we can get Congress to act. It was in effect for 10 years, and then Congress let it expire. I also believe that we can enact sensible gun legislation. When I was in the Senate, I was a sponsor of a bill for a consecutive 5-year sentence for anyone in possession of a firearm during the course of a crime of violence. That's still the law today. As far as other aspects of gun control, we just had that recent experience with the bump stocks. After the Las Vegas massacre, I asked various people that knew that as sportsmen, they didn't even know what a bump stock was. And I believe that we should open up, being an attorney, I believe that we should make people that manufacture the devices that are just made not for sportsmen, and not for hunters, but made for mass destruction, and hide behind the Second Amendment, and hide behind law-abiding citizens. We should make them civilly liable, because they are hiding behind the Second Amendment, just like, in my estimation, a child pornographer is hiding behind the First Amendment. They're in the same class of people and they should be treated accordingly.
Your turn, Bridget. Too strict, not strict enough, or just about right?
Sure. So I think we've made a lot of progress here in Rhode Island on common sense gun safety. That is very important. In a couple of weeks, my 5-year-old is going to get on a school bus for the first time to go to kindergarten. And every day I'm going to have that sinking feeling that I think a lot of parents are feeling right now. Wondering, is my child going to be safe while they're at school? And no parent should have to feel that. I talked to a mom in North Kingstown the other day who has 2 high school age students who are afraid to go to school every day. Because, Rhode Island hasn't had a school shooting yet, and so we're due. How horrifying is that? That's the way our parents and our children are feeling today. So I think we have to do more to make our students feel safe and actually be safe. Right now it's legal for somebody to enter our public schools with a concealed weapon. If they have a concealed carry permit. I don't think that's right, and I think we can change that. The presence of weapons anywhere, makes it more likely that somebody's going to get hurt. That's why I would like to see the Safe Schools Act passed, which would prevent people from carrying guns into schools. I'm also very proud to be endorsed by the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence, and as well I am a Moms Demand Action gun sense candidate. We have a chance to pass some common sense gun safety legislation in Rhode Island, and I intend to help make it happen. Right now we have a lot of leaders in our legislature that take money from the NRA. I think that we need to get the NRA out of our hands ultimately.
Thank you. Next question, and this will start with Bridget. There's a state mandated goal of having 10% affordable housing in each community. I think only 5 communities have achieved that percentage. The last figure I saw was East Greenwich was 4.6%. The question is, how do you propose tackling the issue of affordable housing?
Yeah, so I think that it is difficult for a lot of towns to hit that goal of 10%. Especially in East Greenwich, we've got a lot of waterfront. There's not a whole lot of land to be building on. But that doesn't mean that we should do nothing. Rhode Island has, we've set up a housing trust fund, but we've never funded it. And that's something that we could use as a permanent, long-term funding stream to build affordable housing in Rhode Island. Dozens of other states do it, but we don't do it here. We have, Rhode Island has long neglected its affordable housing. So obviously there's not enough housing stock to go around. We've got young families who are trying to enter the housing market. And we've got, seniors who are starting to be priced out from living in Rhode Island, and that definitely needs to be addressed.
Greg, affordable housing.
As far as affordable housing is concerned, one of the main things we have to do to make affordable housing more attainable is to improve the economy in Rhode Island. And you improve the economy in Rhode Island by attracting more business and by having good schools and keeping the tax rate low. I don't believe in having an excise tax on fuel. It's going to help middle class families or low income families. I think it's going to hurt them. So I think what we have to look at is we have to look at ways to stabilize the tax rate so that we can attract more businesses, have more employment, and that will lead to more affordable housing for all. As far as the seniors are concerned, I think we should implement some type of, instead of city and town, it's fighting for a city and town, we should implement some type of statewide homestead exemption, some type of tax freeze, so that people are not literally, when they reach retirement age, in a situation where they can't afford to pay the taxes on their home. Once their mortgage is paid for, they still can't afford to live there because the tax is being so high. And I think that has to be done on a statewide basis as opposed to by each individual city and town.
Thank you. That concludes the questions for both of you. Now we have two questions, one for Bridget and one for Greg. We'll start with Bridget, and that is, the leadership at the State House has shown some reluctance to support candidates from the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. As one of those candidates, if elected senator, how are you going to work with those leaders?
So through my advocacy up at the State House and through my role as the vice chair of the Rhode Island Democratic Party Women's Caucus, I've had a chance to really get to know a lot of legislators up at the State House. And I think that we have a lot of really great people running this cycle. We have a lot of incumbents that are being challenged for the first time. And I think that it is causing a lot of really great conversations amongst legislators and candidates. And when I'm elected, I expect to work with the legislators that I've gotten to know, as well as leadership. Part of being a legislator is being able to compromise and work with others. And I don't think that I'll help doing that.
Thank you. Greg, this is for you. You've been candid about your DUI history. For anyone concerned about that, why should they take a chance on you?
Well, they should take it. I won't say it's taking a chance on me. I would say that the DUI history involved 2 DUIs, which I admit to. I'm not proud of it, but it did happen. I make no excuses. But since that time, I've turned my life. And I think that you have to look at each individual, what they have done. We've all had bad experiences in our life, and the issue is, did you learn from them? I did. And what kind of message do we want to send to people who have made mistakes? Do we want to send to them the message that once you make a mistake, there's no coming back? Or do we want to say to people, if you made a mistake, and you turn your life around, and you want to make good, and you still have a chance? My legislative history had nothing to do with any type of improprieties. I'm very proud of my legislative history. If you want a legislator, look to the history that I had as a legislator. As far as my DUIs were concerned, it was some time ago. Since that time, I've learned to receive help from others, and I've myself helped others. And I intend to continue doing that. So, again, I make no excuses, but I would just say that everyone has made mistakes. I have, but I've learned from them, and I will continue to learn from them and continue to help others.
Thank you. That concludes our questions for each individual. Now we will be asking alternately a question of each of you. You will have 2 minutes to answer, and the other candidate, if they want, will have a minute to respond to that. I'm just reminding myself also, that's how we're doing it. So, Bridget, I will start with you. How would you address the issue of pay equity, that men make more than women for comparable work?
Sure. So, it is 2018. I cannot believe that we are still having this conversation about whether women should be paid as much as men Whether minorities should be paid as much as white men, it's ridiculous that we're having this conversation still. That being said, it is still a problem. And, last year, the Senate tried to update our fair pay laws. And, they passed a really great bill, that would, prevent employers from, asking, prospective employees about their past salary history. Because when you're asked that kind of information, it only perpetuates the salary inequities. And it would also update the language so that fair pay is guaranteed for substantially similar work rather than just the exact same job. Which in the past has allowed employers to get around paying people fairly and equally. So I would certainly advocate for that bill to be revisited in the new session, and hopefully it would also be adopted by the House and signed by the governor.
Thank you. Greg, would you have a response?
I have to advocate for that bill because sitting in the audience is my daughter. She's a nurse in the hospital. She just got off strike and she's back to work. So I know about paid equity for women. I hear it from her on a constant basis. So rest assured that I will, although I'm not a woman, I will be fighting for women's rights and women's equity. My only daughter, I've seen the experience she goes through. She has 2 young children, and she had to work as picket line because of paying equity. So that's my stand on women's pay equity.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with you, Greg. Do you support this? Excuse me. This comes up often. Do you support giving the governor a line item veto?
I am not crazy about the line item veto, but I would support it because I think the line item veto gives another check and balance in the budget process. And there is a procedure in the line item veto for the assembly, if necessary, to override any veto that the governor gives. But my only concern is I hope that it's instituted in such a way that it doesn't give further hindrance to the budget being passed, because it does place another step. Once the budget is submitted by the governor and is passed by the assembly and it goes back to the governor can then literally line item and pick and choose what items the governor wants to veto, and then that would have to go back to the assembly for potential override. So it does, I just want to make people understand, it does add another step to the budget process, but it is a good check and balance. It works in other states, and I think we can make it work. So I would support it.
Okay. Do you have a response, Bridget?
I would say I would also support line item veto. It is something that is widely popular among voters in Rhode Island. I believe that the General Assembly, I think does have a little, kind of outsized power over the budget. Our governor should be able to guide our spending priorities a little bit more, and so have that check on the General Assembly.
Thanks. Next question, we'll start with you, Bridget. Governor Raimondo's proposal to extend free tuition to Rhode Island College and URI. She got that through for CCRI. And do you support adding it to those other 2 schools?
I do. Our state does not offer a whole lot of aid to our higher education institutions here. And so we find that a lot of students here that go on to go to CCRI, go to RIC, go to URI, are spending a ton on tuition. And so graduating, on time or at all is becoming unattainable for so many families here in Rhode Island. So far, the program has been very successful, and I would support expanding it so that more people can graduate and get a good education. Having a well-trained workforce is the thing that's going to attract companies to Rhode Island. It's going to help us grow industries, from the ground up here in Rhode Island. And so any barriers that we can eliminate to that well-educated workforce, I think we should do.
Thank you. Greg?
I think the free education program is a good program in theory, but it's not working. At CCRI, the program is in trouble. Students are unable to maintain their 2.5 average. I think that money should be taken, and we should invest that money in our K through 12. We have a shortage of math teachers, we have a shortage of science teachers in our high school system. What good is giving someone free college education if we do not give them the tools, K through 12, to maintain the marks and grades in college? CCRI is a remedial school. It's for people coming out of the public school system who cannot compete in the college area. So let's take the money, and instead of giving free education to college students, let's take the money and give it to the teachers in the elementary and secondary high schools. That's my feeling on that. I think it's a good idea, but I think the money is being misdirected, and I think will be better utilized in the high schools.
Thank you. Another question, and we'll start with you, Greg. If elected, will you support Dominic Ruggiero for another term as a Senate President?
Yes. I was elected in 1984, and my freshman classmate was Senator Bridget. And I worked with him when we were in the Senate. I obviously haven't been up there, but I've been following what he has done. He has been in the Senate since 1984. Before that, he was in the House of Representatives. I believe he is doing a good job, and I know that I can work with him. And in working with him, I know I can have a district that I represent, that he will be receptive to listening to me and listening to my concerns for my district. So I will definitely support Senator Ruggiero.
Bridget?
So, I have never met Senator Ruggiero. So I cannot say with certainty whether or not I would support his re-election as Senate President. And also, I don't know who else would be, wanted to put their name in for that position. So I can't say at this time.
Okay. Next question, and we'll start with Bridget. The General Assembly gave more than $2 million to nonprofits and government agencies through the legislative grant program. Do you support legislative grants? Would you sponsor any for your district?
So I think in the past, a lot of legislative grants have gone to, a lot of really great programs. They've gone to libraries, they've gone to, scout troops and Little League, and they're relatively small grants that can, go a long way for programs like that. I think the way that they are handed out could be a lot more transparent, and so I think that the mechanism for how the money is distributed could certainly be changed.
Thank you. Greg?
It's interesting that that question comes up because in the last legislative session, you know me, how much money was the legislative grants came to District 35? Zero. Legislators from District 35 got $0 from the legislative program. And I said I would support Senator Ruggiero. When I get up there, I'll be knocking on his door to make sure this district gets their fair share of legislative grants.
Thank you. I believe we start with you now for this next question. A lot of noise has been made about the tolling of large commercial trucks on 95. currently a lawsuit against it. Do you support or oppose keeping new tolls on large commercial trucks and expanding it to the size that they originally started with?
Well, it is in litigation, usually lawyers don't like to comment on things that are in litigation. I will say, however, that if the truck toll statute is going to be upheld, I would like to see, at the very least, a toll booth put in this area locally, because I know that a lot of the semi-trucks coming from 402 cross through North Kingston and East Greenwich, and I'm not advocating an increase in the amount of tolls, but I think a percentage of that increase, a percentage of the tolls should come to the local communities of North Kingston and East Greenwich. As we all know, right over here it happens. These semi-trucks, when they come from Quonset, they have to get off the highway and come through East Greenwich in order to get back on 95 South. When that incident happened in Pawtucket, when they closed the bridge and the trucks were going to Pawtucket, the state reimbursed Pawtucket because of the fact that they were the host community for that truck traffic. We're the host community for Quonset. So I would, again, be knocking on doors up there to make sure that this community does some type of reimbursement from the tolls, from the tolling revenue, if in fact the tolls are constitutional.
Bridget, your turn.
So one of the things that I hear about most when I'm going door to door is about how bad our roads are. And, there's no question that we need to repair a lot of our roads, our highways, our bridges, and we have to pay for it. So one option would be to have everybody pay a fair share. But the option that we went with was to have some of these really big trucks who really do the most damage to our roads, pay a little bit so that we can fix our roads and our bridges. In a lot of cases, there are out-of-state companies shipping through our state, and they don't contribute at all, to our tax base. They don't engage in commerce here, and so I think that we should be having them contribute to repairing the roads and paying for the damage.
All right. So we have one more question, and we'll start with Bridget. This is kind of a technical legislative question, I guess, but many pieces of proposed legislation never get out of committee. What would be most important to you when deciding whether to vote legislation out of committee?
I think one problem that we really have with the General Assembly, and I think that a lot of people are frustrated with, is that so many really great pieces of legislation never make it out of committee. They are held for further study, which means they're basically killed. We have so many bills that never are publicly debated, on the House floor, the House floor, the Senate floor, and never come to a vote. And I don't think that's good for our democracy. So, bills that are heard before a committee that I would sit on, to vote them out of committee, I would see, is this going to be beneficial to our state? And is there the support for it? And there are a lot of bills that have come up where there is overwhelming support and a ton of people come out to testify in favor of them, and yet they don't even make it for a vote.
Greg?
Well, I would say that the committee process is an informed process, in that the function of committees is to screen legislation before it hits the Senate or House floor. It is impossible, it sounds good in theory, but it is impossible to have every piece of legislation introduced, debated by the full Senate or the full House. It just can't be done. It can't be done in Congress, it's not done in any other state, and it can't be done in this state. That is the purpose of the committee process. Now, that being said, there are times when the committee process is abused by the leadership. I agree with that, but you have to look at the whole process, and the whole process in the end works. I remember when I first went up to the Senate, a veteran legislator said to me, legislation is kind of like making sausage. You don't want to see it being made, but it tastes good once you get the end product. That's basically what happens with legislation. There are a lot of compromises, there are a lot of amendments until it finally hits the floor for a vote. So I would say that you have to have a committee process. You have it in Congress, you have it in every assembly in the United States. You cannot do a
Time's up.
committee process.
Thank you. That's it for the questions. I would like to thank everyone who submitted these. We had some great questions. They all came from interested voters, and I want to thank them for that participation in the democratic process. Closing statements now. You each have 2 minutes to make your case, and we will start with Bridget.
Great, thank you. This has been really great. Thank you to everyone who came out here tonight and submitted questions and is staying engaged and getting informed. I'm so happy to have had this chance to speak with you all tonight. And when I look out at the audience, I see friends, I see neighbors, I see concerned voters who want their government to work better. People know that our politics are not working right now. They're not working in Washington, they're not working well in Providence, and they're not working locally here in East Greenwich. But I don't see people giving up. I see them joining together and being more engaged than ever before. People are paying attention and speaking up and fighting for the issues they care about. And that's what gives me hope. That's what makes me want to double down and work even harder for District 35. Because I know how passionate parents are about sending their kids to good schools that are safe. And I know how committed seniors are to the communities that they've made their home for their lives. And I know how hard so many Rhode Islanders are working and trying to get ahead and trying to make a good life for their families. And for all the ways politics and politicians, have let us down, we have a chance right now to do something really great and create real change and progress in Rhode Island. I know how many of you are working hard to make that happen. And I promise to be a fresh voice and serve you with honest leadership and that same spirit of commitment up in the General Assembly. We can make Rhode Island work for all of us. And it starts by showing up on Election Day. So I urge you all to make sure that you get out and vote in the primary on Wednesday, September 12th, and then again on Tuesday, November 6th. And so I humbly ask for your vote at both those times. And so thank you all for coming, and thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Bridget.
We have to remember why we're here tonight. This is not the election. This is the Democratic primary. And the purpose of the Democratic primary is to nominate the person who is most qualified and viable to win in November. And you have a clear choice. You have someone with experience versus someone with no experience. You have someone who has lived in the state all their life and has been educated here. Someone who you know personal history all about. And you have someone that is a question mark. You have someone that stands for a progressive agenda. I do not. I embrace some of the theories put forth, but not all of the theories. I am not guided by an outside agenda. I lived here all my life. I have family here. I've been educated here. I served in the Senate here. I do not march to the agenda of some outside force. I do not march to a progressive agenda that wants to cut defense spending, which would be dramatic impact on this district. I do not march to a progressive agenda which believes in raising the gas tax, which would hurt the middle class here. That is all part of the progressive agenda, which Bridget adheres to, and which she is going to have to sell if she's nominated by you to the general population in November. Will they buy it? This is not a personality contest. This is not who you like better. This is to choose who you think can go head to head and beat the Republican in November and return the District 35 seat to the Democratic Party. And for that, I ask and thank you for your support.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Bridget. Thanks for participating. And thanks everyone for coming out. Again, I want to thank East Greenwich News, East Greenwich Chamber of Commerce, and of course, New England Institute of Technology for the space and for the opportunity. And thanks to you all.